Call the meeting to order. First item is roll call. Holly.
Thanks. This is Holly, and apologize, I am looking at two different screens right now, so I am paying attention. But in terms of roll call, we'll go down our list here. Representing CCI, either Steve, Mike, or Marie. Okay. Representing CML, Megan. Representing the accessibility community, Cheryl.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, Cheryl. Representing members at large, Matthew Ruggles or Luke Adams as alternate. Representing BESPs, Tim Kunkelman.
Oh,
Mary Jane. Representing Enchado.
Jane said she was going to be late.
Representing ILEX, Wes Horn.
where is everybody?
Also representing ILEX, Darla Joseph. All right. Representing wireless carriers, Patrick and Monica.
Monica's
Patrick
on.
Cusick is present by phone.
This is Holly, thank you. Representing CLEX, Andrew VoIP. Ray, Lindsay, Jay,
Yep.
Erica.
Yeah, Ray is here.
Jay is also here.
And representing 911s, Derek from Durango. Danette from Morgan.
Good morning, I'm here.
Jeremy from Grand Junction, or Jennifer Kirkland as alternate.
Jeremy is here. I do want to mention the sign-up sheet does give the existing meeting request for Google, so we may have people on the existing meeting based off the sign-up sheet.
This is Holly. The calendar invite and everything else was Zoom.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully that worked out. I found it when I signed in, and then I saw the agenda, and that's where I noticed. But
I'll jump on the other one on my other computer here and direct people to the right place.
And this is Holly. I'm looking at the sign-up sheet. I don't see anything that says Google.
It's after
Oh.
you sign in, it gives
you the link.
conclusion message at the
Yeah.
end.
Gotcha. All right. So I apologize. I think we had Jeremy and Jennifer here.
Hey, Daryl, this is Wes. I'm just joining the meeting, but I could not get in on Zoom.
Jennifer is here.
and Jeremy is here as well.
You are on Zoom, Wes. Or did you join by phone?
I'm joined by phone. My laptop is just spinning in circles here on this browser I launched it. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't like Zoom very much. I don't know if that's what the deal is.
Okay, thank you. Holly, go ahead and continue.
Kimberly for Larimer,
This is Kimberly and I'm present.
and then Val or Tracy. Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all are alternates for Larimer. For AdCom, Jackie or Amy?
Amy, this is Amy, and I'm present. Jackie's here also.
For Eagle County, Beth? For Sterling, Valicia or Paula?
Felicia's here.
Felicia. Apologize, Felicia. And then for Jeffco, we got Jeff.
Irvin present.
Delta County, Connie.
Connie's here.
Douglas County, Deanie or Shannon.
Deanie's here.
Denver, Andrew or Jennifer. Jeffcom, Vicky.
Vicky's here.
Aurora, Tina or Scott.
Scott is here. Holly.
For Thornton, we have Sean or Brandy.
John's here.
And for Westco, Molly, or I'm sorry, Mandy or Matt.
Mandy's here.
Matt as well.
And then for Garfield, Carl, Tom, and then Monica.
Carl's here.
And Boulder, Patty or Christine.
Yeah, Patty's on.
Is there anybody that I missed? And I'm just checking the chat. Beth, I see you messaged in the chat and I have you down now.
Todd Holsworth, Grand County.
All right, this is Holly. Anybody else as a voting member that was not called? All right, thank you.
This is Carl Hawley. Thank you for that. Next item is approval of minutes from May 2021. Do I have a motion to approve or changes?
This is Scott, and so moved.
Scott moves a second,
This is Vicky, a second.
and Vicky seconds. Anybody opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. And then the next item is vote to fill vacant Durango La Plata position. Daryl or Holly?
So this is Daryl. Durango's had some change in management. They had an interim director for a while and they hadn't been attending these meetings, probably because they didn't realize that these meetings existed. So really not any fault of their own. I wasn't aware until after a couple of meetings had passed that they had an interim director in place. They are in the process of a new director coming in right now. And according to their interim director, they do want to continue being members, but since they did miss 3 meetings in a 12-month period, according to our bylaws, that position is now vacant. We can vote them back in, or if there's anyone else who wishes to become a voting member who isn't now in one of the 911 position, we could vote that person in instead. So Carl, I'll leave it up to you how you want to handle it. We can, we have one nomination, which is to vote Durango La Plata 911 back into that position. Or we could take nominations from the floor.
Thank you. This is Carl. I did see La Plata attended the last meeting. Is there anybody on from Durango La Plata now? We do have a message from Jody from Gunnison saying she'd be happy to fill the 911 position.
This is Jeff. I nominate Jody.
This is Jennifer Kirkland. I'll second.
And the closed captioning, Jeff, just said that you nominated God.
I like it. We'll stick with it.
There you go.
So we have a motion and a second to nominate Jody Chin with Gunnison County to fill that position. Is everybody in favor? If not, say aye or say nay. Okay, it looks like motion carries. And part of the reason was saying nay instead of asking everybody for affirmative, just with the online, it's a little bit harder. Daryl, is there anything else we need to do?
No, I don't believe so. I'll make the, or Holly will make the adjustment to the roster for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like Andrew with Denver joined as well. And then the next item on our agenda, one of the things Daryl and I talked about and Daryl brought up is doing the presentations first, just because sometimes they have to wait around quite a while. So the next item is presentations.
So do we have Jahan Karim from DeGero on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm not sure what I need to do because this is the first time we've used Zoom for this. I don't know what I need to do so that you can share your screen if you have a presentation.
Absolutely. I believe I need permissions to share my screen. So whoever is a host, if you could allow me to share my screen, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, I just changed it so that all participants should have share capability now. Do you have share screen at the bottom of your control panel?
Yep, it's active now. Thank you. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I understand I have about 30 minutes. I'll try to keep it short and succinct for the audience. I appreciate the opportunity to present to the team. By way of introduction, my name is Jahan Karim, and I am the Business Development Manager for our connectivity business at DeGero Labs. DeGero is headquartered in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and we have a global presence in terms of a communications solutions provider. As I mentioned, I am in charge of the connectivity business that includes our public safety business, our defense business, and our enterprise business. And my colleague Kevin Fernandez runs our broadcast business. I appreciate, Daryl, you giving me the opportunity to speak to the audience today. I'll keep the focus of the meeting more so technical and user focused. This is not meant to be a sales pitch. And I will essentially walk through the core technology platform and the applications that we're supporting in the public safety arena. Of course, NG911 being one of the ones that I would like to highlight to the audience today. And if there's any questions, you can hold them till the end of the presentation, or you're more than welcome to interrupt me and just ask. Perfect. So with that, we'll start off with what is it that DeGero actually provides solution to address today? And really our solutions are focused on 4 main areas, all around network resiliency, reliability, uptime, and bandwidth focus, right? DeGero provides solutions to our customers today across the United States and across the globe, where customers are looking for, let's call it network in mobile environments. They're looking for network in remote environments, as because of the pandemic, a lot of people had to be working in different environments. The network requirement did not change when they went remote. We provide solutions to address those types of needs. We're providing solutions in areas where reliability is of key concern and network uptime is of key concern in the NG911 space. That makes a lot of sense, or even just in the 911 space. And then last but not least, we're providing solutions in areas of disaster management and emergency management, where operations are being undertaken in environments where networks have been impacted due to natural disasters or inclement weather, whatever that may be. So our platforms are being deployed as a redundancy methodology in those environments. And in a nutshell, what the platform really is a multi-technology, multi-operator platform that enables seamless communications across different transport layers for the end customer. And the way we do that is with our patented algorithms that we call smart blending technology. Some of you may be familiar with it as link aggregation or link bonding technology. We believe our algorithm and our proprietary implementation of this algorithm has the best-in-class performance in the market today. But by implementing a system that is able to leverage multiple technologies and multiple providers simultaneously, we believe we can provide our end customers with the best in breed in terms of a platform and communications. And as it's a bit of an eye chart here, so I apologize for that. Some of the benefits the customers then see because of this capability is enhanced network bandwidth, because we can aggregate across various providers and various technologies. They get enhanced reliability because we're not relying on any single network, and they get I would say the superset of coverage, especially in mobile environments or even in fixed location environments as networks are being built out. They get a superset coverage of the underlying networks. There's certainly other features that we enable because of our cloud native approach when it comes to communications, and we can definitely jump into that. But I would say the core benefit of the technology is the ability to enable multi-technology, multi-operator comms very seamlessly for the end customer. And as I mentioned, it's all based in what we call our smart blending technology. And essentially, I'm not going to read this out, but what we're doing is we're bringing together all different underlying networks as a single network to our customer. And in 911 use cases, we are being deployed as a tertiary circuit to their primary and secondary MPLS circuits, and in some cases being considered as secondary circuits as well, because we're primarily dealing with the wireless circuits and not dealing with the fiber circuits at the moment. But if it's anything to do with a DSL connection, a cable connection, an LTE connection, or a SATCOM connection, we can absolutely deal with those types of technology. Now, jumping right into what are the areas for our technology and application. I know that this was positioned as, Dejero provides real-time video and real-time communications. The fact that we provide real-time video, that platform is built on our core technology, which is this network management technology, right? I mean, the core differentiator, if there was any one takeaway I would have from this meeting, is Dejero is built as the next generation of failover technology. Failover is very prevalent in the market. Failover technology is exciting, it's amazing. It helps our customers go from a single network to multiple networks and not have to deal with a single network dependency. However, we're taking failover to the next, I would say, evolution, and we're providing a solution that's not a failover solution. It's a unified network across multiple transports. And in the defense space, they're calling it an automated PACE plan, right? I mean, those of you that may be familiar with defense technology or terminology, they call it a PACE plan, where they would have their primary, alternative, contingency, and emergency communications plan. In the defense sector, they're looking at our technology as what they're calling next generation PACE or automated PACE, because the system is automatically deciding which network is the best network to traverse the packets of information or data with. So it's the next generation of that. That's really the key differentiator of what we're providing in the market for our customers that have network challenges, let's just call it. And at the end of the day, because of the nature of the technology that we provide, we see our technology deployed a lot in emergency response, whether that's with law enforcement or fire or EMS, both at the federal and state level. We see our technology deployed in natural disaster environments, where typically they're in areas where networks have been impacted or network coverage is just not there because it's an area where networks haven't been built out for various reasons. We're able to provide tactical communications in those types of environments. Again, search and rescue is a very similar type of use case where our technology is enabling comms in remote areas. And in most cases, it's not just Dejero, right? Dejero is the platform that's leveraging underlying network technologies or overlay network technologies. And I'm happy to get into details here if anyone's interested. But especially for search and rescue and wildfire fighting type deployments, we have worked with mesh network deployments like Sovis or Ragent or Trellisware or Precision or whoever it may be, where they're providing a tactical network. We're providing a tactical backhaul that's multi-network to enable a deployment or an operation for our customers. Again, we like to mention the crowd monitoring scenario where essentially we're operating in very dense environments. This was typically us providing support to the Department of Homeland or Customs and Border Protection for, let's say, the Super Bowl or the inauguration, which are events we support, as they happen, the Super Bowl on an annual basis and the inaugurations on a regular basis, where they're coordinating their tactical communications, surveillance, and security operations with our equipment, because we're able to provide a level of service during a very congested or contested environment, a wireless contested environment for their operations. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, we're providing fixed location backup, whether that be for 911, whether that be for law enforcement, or for firefighters at their stations, or for fire services, I should say, at their stations with our technology. Again, providing a very reliable, robust backup in the sense of a wireless backup or I would say a secondary or tertiary backup. So that at a high level kind of tells you what is it we do and who is it we do it for and why do we do it. At the end of the day, the name of the game is reliability and resilience. That's really where we play. And the last half of the presentation really focuses on what is it that we provide to our customers. What Dejuro provides to our customers is a full suite of services and a one-stop shop of different facilities, different capabilities that we provide that go all the way from hardware to software to connectivity services. Dejuro has the ability to wholesale and resell cellular and SATCOM and wireline services, as well as the customer can bring their own. It's not exclusive to Dejuro, but we have the ability to be the one-stop shop. And this is all backed up by our cloud services and our 24/7 NOC support services because of the business we're in. So the customer essentially acquires a multi-operator, multi-technology communications capability by partnering up with Dejuro and is able to address some of their concerns. The next couple of slides, these couple of slides really talk about the product itself. I don't really want to get into too much detail here, but it kind of gives you an idea of what is it we're talking about. Essentially, we're talking about multi-radio customer premise equipment. And when I say multi-radio, I mean multi-cellular radio that's incorporated in these devices, in some cases up to 6. And you have the ability to add additional WAN connectivity, such as cellular or SATCOM or wireline connectivity. And then we have other form factors that agencies deploy in more rugged environments. Think spot trailers, mobile command centers, things that have to be a bit more ruggedized. We have a smaller form factor that we deploy there. And as I mentioned, we are cloud native and cloud first. So we run our infrastructure through our backend cloud services where we aggregate our services and then forwarded it to either the tier 1 provider of communications, or we become the provider of communications and we provide the NOC support to the end customer. So we have flexibility to partner up with the customer on this, or we can be the provider to the customer. And last but not least, as I mentioned, we have the ability to provide carrier services, and this includes, at least in the US, includes T-Mobile, includes Verizon, includes AT&T FirstNet, and some of the other carriers as well. And as I mentioned, we have agreements in place to provide these carrier services integrated as part of our products. And that's really is the overall presentation. I don't want to take too much of the team's time, but if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, I'll leave this slide up there because it's kind of a good high-level overview. If there's any comments, concerns, or questions, I'm happy to address them.
Hi, this is Vicki. I was just curious. You've got multiple carriers on there, and I'm assuming you are just the aggregator, but you aren't really responsible for what kind of network connections we use. I'm assuming we would have to have subscriptions to each one of those, have accounts with each one of those to enable that.
Hi, Vicki. Thanks for the question. You have both options. You have the option to contract Dejuro, and Dejuro can get you a single, call it data plan, that's a multi-carrier data plan, or you have the option to bring your own data plans. We're not going to prevent our customers from saying, hey, I've got a contract with a carrier or provider. You can absolutely plug it in. But if you're trying to optimize that and say, hey, we would like a single point of contact to manage all of our activation services and network, where we have the ability to do that. We have carrier contracts in place, and we provide services across multiple carriers. And I forgot to mention this, we are actually in active deployment. I can mention this, in active deployment with the state of California for their NG911 deployment at all of their PSAPs as a tertiary circuit to back up their primary and secondary MPLS. Hope that answered the question.
It did. Thank you.
Perfect. If there's no other questions or comments, I'm happy to share the slides that I presented with Daryl, and I'm sure Daryl can socialize them with the audience. Again, thank you everyone for the time. And if you would like to have a discussion with Tajiro around mobile comms or tactical communications or tactical video, we're more than happy to be in touch with you via Daryl or directly to address any of your concerns or questions. Daryl, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind giving up presentation, there you go. Scott Heath with CRG Plans, are you on the line?
Sir, this is Mike Rogers from CRG. I'll be presenting in Scott's stead today, if that's okay.
Great. Do you see the access to share your screen?
I do, yes, sir. I'm just going to bring it up right now. Can you see that, sir?
Yes.
Great. Everyone, I do truly appreciate your time today. I'm going to be talking about two types of technology. My name is Mike Rogers. Like I said, I'm the CEO of a company called Critical Response Group based out of New Jersey. We are a U.S. public safety company that supports through technology to increase situational awareness for first responders across the country. Also with me on the team today is a gentleman by the name of Dennis Sims. Dennis runs our 911i product line, which is an emergency video streaming tool I will show at the second portion of the presentation. My background very quickly is I come from 5 generations of public safety. That's what my family's done for about 130 years. I'm the first one not to do that. So following 9/11, made a decision I wanted to go in the military. Was fortunate, started at West Point, and then from West Point found my way into the U.S. Special Operations community, of which I have half a dozen deployments. It was while serving in that community I was introduced to 2 techniques and 2 pieces of technology that I wanted to take in transition for domestic first responders. Today, as you fast forward, we are located across the country, have boots on the ground in several states. Our office is in New Jersey, but we are comprised of one of 3 things. You have individuals with my background coming out of the special operations community who are used to using this technology overseas. Second are public safety professionals that helped us take the technology and the lessons learned overseas and apply them home. They're by far the biggest portion and most important part of our team. And then lastly are a number of technical experts that we have to help us deploy the technology as quickly as possible. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a mapping technique that we've applied, but it was again born out of lessons learned overseas. So in the 2005 and 2006 timeframe, the Joint Special Operations community was conducting as many night raids as possible, but we were told that we had to increase the amount of operations every night. So as we started to study that problem set as a community, we very quickly realized that one of the main issues that we were facing was every night we were going and conducting operations at locations that we were unfamiliar with. So in an effort to make it more efficient to plan, communicate, and execute operations, Special Operations, instead of just looking at a piece of imagery, turned that imagery into a very simple common operating picture known as a GRG. And you'll see it's a very crude, simple document, but very simply, there's letters across the top, there's numbers on the left-hand side, every building is labeled, every intersection is labeled, and north is up on the imagery. So as you look at the example in front of you, if I just asked you to play a game of Battleship with me and find grid square F7, you would go to F in the top center, 7 in the bottom left, and then meet in the middle like a game of Battleship. And you'll see inside that grid square, it's marked intersection G. Now, if I wanted you to start there and I asked you to walk north up the road to intersection A and grid square F5, then find intersection A, at that intersection, make a left, then head to the west and meet me in building 11 in grid square D4, I know you can follow along with what I'm talking about, and most likely you've never been to this location before. Well, the Special Operations community, understanding how important and transformative this was because it made it easier for us to communicate independent of discipline and location, made this technique mandatory. And this is the technique that was used really from 2008 and became mandatory. This is still the same way we plan operations and ultimately execute operations in support of military special operations. To include the Bin Laden raid, I show this very famous picture from the Bin Laden raid because in my opinion, it validates the use of the mapping technique. If you look in front of Secretary Clinton, she is looking at the same exact common operating picture that the operator over in Pakistan is utilizing. And you think about the significance of that, but really the simplicity associated with it. But when you think about this specific operation, the importance to our country, there was no resource that was not at our fingertips to plan and execute the operation. But this is how we did it because it works. So I had the good fortune, a number of individuals on our team that come out of this community knew this mapping technique to be a best practice. And as we came home, we wanted to bring that technique home, but very quickly realized that that technique didn't exist domestically. And what does exist in every single piece of critical infrastructure from a school to a mosque to a mall to a power plant across the country is an emergency action plan that looks like that binder on the left-hand side. That's what it looks like across the country. So what we wanted to do was realize what is in place today, then take a look at how we were doing in the military and meet in the middle and create domestic common operating pictures. But as we started to do that, we very quickly identified 3 issues that we had to overcome to create domestic site-specific maps. The first issue is that if you look at imagery today, so whatever imagery is running in your CAD system, or if you're looking at the imagery that's in RapidSOS's jurisdiction view, or you just launch Google Earth or Bing Mapping, you'll realize that imagery is presented to the end user in true north. So north is up. But now as I go from the imagery associated with this school, and please take note of the gold star, but as I go from the imagery of this school to the blueprint for this facility, you'll see the blueprint and the imagery do not match up. And the reason for that is because although imagery isn't presented in true north, blueprints are designed what's called project or plan north, which is arbitrary. So every blueprint is going to be rotated in a different cardinal direction based on the architect or engineer who is contracted to build that building. That's the first issue we see. The second problem is that the blueprints are often out of date, inaccurate. We've done about 5,000 buildings across the country, and less than 1% of the schematics that we've seen are accurately representing a location. And the reason for that is because just the schools in Colorado alone, on average, are over 50 years old. So that's 50 years of changes, renovations, additions, and over time, the schematics that we have today on file no longer represent the location. And then lastly, the blueprints are not labeled in the plain text nomenclature of this facility, meaning that if you looked at this, which is best case scenario, what you have today, and I asked you to go to classroom 2 or door 5, or someone calls 911 and says someone's having chest pain in the teacher's lounge, this information doesn't help you. So what we want to do is fix those 3 problems. Standardize the cardinal direction, so they're all true north and matching the imagery. Next, we want to make sure that they're an accurate, reliable schematic. And then lastly, we want to make sure that they're properly labeled to facilitate clear communication about the specific location. So I'm going to show a very quick animation. What we do is we take whatever's on file, we cut it out, we rotate it so it's true north on an up-to-date piece of aerial imagery. We then walk every structure with engineering software and we correct the base schematic. So if this facility has moved walls, moved doors, changed the location, which happens 99% of the time, we update that base schematic. While on site, we also gather the site-specific labels associated with this facility. So if they have it marked door A or door A53, it doesn't matter to us. We will gather the site-specific label and overlay it on top. Next, we work with the specific location and we find all the critical features that would be important from a response perspective, namely the fire access control panel, Knox box location, electrical disconnects, hydrant locations, AED locations, camera locations, anything that would be important from a response perspective. We gather that as an additional overlay and put that on top of the now up-to-date schematic. And then lastly, what we do is we take that gridded template, leveraging the lessons learned in the military, and we apply that on top. So no matter who you are, public safety telecommunicator, police officer, firefighter, school administrator, security professional, everyone can talk this very simple language. And when we work through our entire workflow, what goes back is a CRG, or a collaborative response graphic, which is this transformation of the military tool for domestic purposes. So as you look at the example in front of you, if I asked you to go to the northeastern side of the structure to grid square J4, top right, then find door D, as door D is physically marked to this facility, I want you to come through door D onto the black hallway and make your first right and meet me into the media center. I know I put you through a very specific door to a specific part of this building in a couple seconds. And I know most likely no one's ever been to this school, which is in central New Jersey, which is in Brielle Elementary School. And what we've done now is we've simplified and flattened the communication during the response, enabling all individuals who are either familiar or unfamiliar with this location to speak a common language. When we build graphics, we build 2 types of graphics. First is a macro. Think of it as a high altitude command and control external shot of this facility. But the reason I show this is because it enables me to highlight the technology that's running in the background, specifically the technology we use to build the graphics. As you're looking at this, if you look at row 8, you'll see there's really 2 different shades of green coming together, almost like you don't know where one stops and the other begins. And the reason for that is we use a very specific piece of military mapping technology. We're the only ones in the country with it, that enables us to take imagery off of any collection platform. So any satellite, any drone, any aerial collected imagery from either a helicopter or a fixed wing platform, and take those different data sources and stitch that together. And what that does for us is it enables us to accomplish 2 different things. First is we can have very accurate imagery. We can replace out-of-date imagery with new imagery. But most importantly, it enables us to maintain the metadata associated with a specific facility. So basically every pixel in this piece of imagery has a latitude and longitude associated with it. And because the underlying imagery is smart, when we then go to the facility, we get our hands on the blueprints that are usually rolled up in a basement somewhere, and we digitize them. And now we make them to scale, and we make them accurate, and we color code them, and we superimpose the geospatial labels, or we put the labels on top, and then we overlay it on top of the imagery. The blueprint now retains those geospatial properties. So, which is very important. I'll talk about it. One of the biggest things, we're very proud of our relationship we have with RapidSOS. Well, every map that we do automatically gets uploaded into their portal. And because the underlying imagery is smart, and now we've made that top blueprint smart, when someone calls 911 and you are able to geolocate that caller's location through RapidSOS, it'll real-time plot them either internal or external to the structure in real time. Additionally, we're able to put the maps into multiple different CAD systems and mobile applications, and it enables responders to be tracked in real time on top of the graphics. One last thing I want to point out on the example in front of you is if you look at the northeastern side of this building on the top right in grid square I-5, you'll see the doors are marked with green circles in accordance with the national standards. But as I go from south to north, you'll see the doors are marked door 9, 10, 11, 12, 29, 13, and the doors are mislabeled. And the reason for that is at this specific facility, the doors are mislabeled, which is not uncommon. Unfortunately, as we go across the country, it's very important that we go building by building, label by label, and gather the accurate information so that when it's put on file and someone's relying upon it, we're all speaking the same common language. But what we see 11% of the time is that what is in place is something that looks like this. It's either an abstract drawing, there's nothing at all, or a lot of times we get a hand-drawn schematic for a facility, which is problematic. We want to identify those issues on the front end, work through that, and ultimately take this graphic, and it goes back looking like this. Here you will see the doors are identified with green circles, but they're not labeled. And the reason for that is when we went and actually walked this facility, the doors were not labeled. We will only gather the label so it accurately represents that location. But in this example, we were able to take this, point them back towards the public safety community. Public safety makes a recommendation on how they want the doors labeled. We come back on site, relabel, and ultimately redisseminate that graphic back out into the field. And now everyone's able to have an up-to-date living, breathing document that reflects this location. I've shown a number of schools up to this point, but this technique doesn't just apply to schools. It applies to places of worship, multiple story government structures, very large hospital complexes, sporting venues, airports, transportation hubs. And I show this really because the technique applies to all pieces of critical infrastructure. It also applies to reactive events. It also applies to parks, things like that, places that you're getting high calls for service. We're able to map any of those locations out and then provide it to you in a format that you can ingest. The problem that we're solving, and then I will transition to the video streaming in 1 second, is that as you look throughout your communities today, unfortunately, the schematics are represented by the far left-hand side of the slide. Some of the facilities in your area's responsibility have rolled up floor plans, maps that are in PDF'd in a binder on CDs. Unfortunately, a lot of times they're just in different file formats because there is different software used to build those schematics. So first thing that we do is the scavenger hunt to find everything that you need. And there's not a day that goes by in our business where we're not building a school. Let's use schools as an example. And the school will literally send us 25 schematics and say, it's somewhere in here, or we've had multiple renovations. Here's the different pieces to the puzzle. And we will work through all that raw data to get you the one piece of paper that you need. So step one is finding what you need. Step two is fixing it, bringing everything up to date so it's an accurate, reliable document. And now we've created this graphic. The last thing that we do, and most importantly, in my opinion, is the dissemination of the graphic. And unfortunately, and you know better than I do, with the lack of interoperable systems within public safety, it's very important that we can provide these maps in different file formats to the different tools that are out in the space. And we do that through our workflow. The final step is to publish the maps in multiple different file formats. So what that looks like in practice is top left, like I already mentioned, one of the things we're very proud about is our relationship with RapidSOS, where the maps automatically get uploaded into jurisdiction view, into the portal, into query view. So that'd be one way you could access it. A lot of the times your schools or facilities, they have different types of technology, from video management solutions to panic buttons. All our maps are integrated into all those different platforms. Bottom left is an example of what the maps geospatially look like in a CAD. And then bottom right are a number of different mobile applications that our maps go into. And really what we've done is we wanted to create a common operating picture, but truly understanding the way public safety operates is we had to come at it from a different direction, understanding the ground game, and take the maps and put them into the systems that you already have deployed. Traditionally, this is a no-cost initiative for public safety. What we want to do is work with you, work with your teams to communicate the mapping work that we're doing to out to the public, specifically down into different school districts, the hospitals, and public safety is a recipient of the graphics at no cost. So what I was hoping to do, if anyone is interested, we'd love to connect and then ultimately work with you to provide this information out to your communities and ultimately have them build the mapping and then send that back. Does anybody have any questions on the mapping work at this time before I transition to the emergency video streaming? Okay, nothing heard. I'm just going to transition slideshows very quickly. As the business continued to grow, we realized very quickly that we wanted to also introduce other ways to increase situational awareness for public safety. And one of the lessons we brought was an emergency video streaming capability directly from the UK, but I will tie it back to the experiences that I had within the special operations community. At the same time that the mapping was starting to evolve, the military special operations community began to rely very heavily on the use of video intelligence to really drive decision-making and increase situational awareness on the battlefield. And we did that through drones and ISR platforms. Obviously, that is not a direct correlation into public safety at home. So what we wanted to do as a company was understand the importance of video to drive a better, more efficient, educated decision. We wanted to bring that home. The way that we did that was through a partnership with a company called Capita. Capita is a very large public safety company in the United Kingdom, and they built a tool called 911i. 911i was initially built for the fire service, and the intent is, and I will show it live in a second, is it enables us to leverage all of the cell phones out in your communities today. Basically, you're able to receive a 911 call, and then you're able to send a text message directly to any person's cell phone, no application required. Once that individual receives this secure text message, they can securely share video, pictures, their location, and a two-way texting capability back through the software. And really what we've wanted to do is realizing how many cell phones are out in your communities today. How do we, and we're never going to be able to put a drone or a helicopter up quick enough in the front end of an incident. We want to be able to pull that person who's on the ground, looking at this, to be able to share that data in the most efficient way possible. And ultimately, that's why we partner with Capita and then brought this 911i technology to the United States. We're the only company in the United States that represents this technology. We looked at several ones, but in our opinion, this was by far the best, just due to the flexibility and the cost associated with the product. In addition, I will talk to at the end, but this product is also integrated into the Rapid SOS portal, where you're able to launch right from their portal and then be able to pull that data feed in. So I'm going to, again, show a quick animation, and then I will show it live. But imagine you're receiving a call, and then very quickly you can transmit a text message to whoever is sending that call or anybody else outside. As soon as they receive this text message, again, no app required, they're able to select, yes, I'm willing to share my location. Yes, I'm willing to share this video real time. So now that person, in a matter of seconds, is able to transmit that feed back to whoever sent them the initial link. Now I'm getting that live feed off their device. And then from there, as I'm looking at that feed, I can make a decision that I want to share that video feed out to other responders. I can share it potentially to a supervisor through just a web browser, or I can also share it out into first responders that are out in the field via a text message. So now imagine the text message comes in, I look at it, I make a decision, I want to transmit that out to another responder. I can simply bounce that piece of that imagery real time, that live stream video real time out into the field. So what I'm gonna do very quickly is I'm just gonna, instead of showing this animation, show it in real life. And I'm gonna use Dennis on our team to help me show this. So if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna stop this share. And then I'm gonna share it real. So hopefully you can see that. What I'm gonna do very quick is I'm just gonna log in. So I logged into my web browser. So it logs me in, and you're presented with a very simple screen. You can either type in anyone's information, we can auto-populate it, or you can also have saved ones in here. So I have a saved one just for the purposes of the presentation today. I'm gonna use Dennis, and I'm gonna do test. I sent this to Dennis. So you'll see my, my home screen now, my changes. Dennis has now received this text. It'll take a second, and Dennis is going to select yes, that he wants to be able to transmit a video or a picture. So now you'll see real time Dennis's location has popped up to where Dennis is sitting. And Dennis is also real time able to share his screen in his office right now. So Dennis shows us what's going on real time. I can, if I want, you see here, it says a live chat is now available. I can send that to Dennis, and Dennis can also real time send that back to me. So he responds. In addition to this flow right here, I'm able to share it with anybody else that I want to share it to. So let's say I want to share it to an operative, someone out in the field. Just for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to share it to myself. So you can have pre-populated numbers or someone on the fly. And that what I'm going to do is just share that. And I now will receive a text on my phone, and I just did. And I'm able to click that. And if you can see my video, I don't know if you can see my video where I'm at right now, it'll pop up. And now I'm able to real time see exactly what Dennis is looking at. So I'm able to receive that, make a decision. I want to transmit that, and then transmit that out into the field. It is meant to be super simple. There's multiple languages that if I wanted to transition, if I have a Spanish speaking individual that calls, I'm able to transition and be able to push that to them in their native language. But what I will also do is I will stop the share. Or Dennis, if you can do me a favor, stop this share and just push me a picture. So as you'll see, Dennis will go, and now that video has been uploaded. I can make that decision based on the policies associated with the department. If I want to, I can, at first and foremost, it'll be stored for a minimum of 30 days in the secure Azure environment. And then if you wanted to download that onto your device, if you wanted to go and put that into your RMS to for more data keeping, that's totally on you, and ultimately how the department wants to manage that. So now you'll see the video popped up and also the picture popped up from Dennis, and then it's that simple. So then I can end the session, and I'm sure I want to end it, and now I've ended that. I'm just going to transition out of this very quickly. I'm going to go back into the slide deck, and then I will step off. So just to highlight Overcap, the 911i features. First and foremost is to be able to securely send videos and photos. There is no application required, so we can literally leverage any person out in the field and be able to pull that data in. 2 is the live GPS tracking. It's dynamic tracking. So in addition to the GPS functionality associated with RapidSOS, this is just an additional way that you'd be able to pull that data in. 2 is the two-way text messaging. The real-time sharing, like I showed, to be able to push that back out into the field, either through a web browser or another text message. And then finally, being able to securely upload that into the Azure cloud environment. With that, that completes both presentations. I apologize for speaking so quickly, but out of respect to your time, I wanted to make sure I covered the information. And I would love to take any questions that you have on either product.
Thank you. Any questions for Scott? Or I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name from earlier.
It's Mike, sir.
Mike. All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Great. And thank you to the members for entertaining this change in our usual methodology. I recommended to Carl that we have the presentations go first this time, simply because last time we finished our business meeting early and then the presenters weren't coming on until noon. So that made a huge gap in the meeting time. We could have ended a lot earlier. So thank you to our presenters today. And I will turn it back over to Carl, so he can turn it back over to me. Carl, are you there? So Carl might have stepped away for a moment, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so that we can look at the standing reports.
Daryl, it says he lost his microphone on chat. So.
Oh, okay. So can everybody see the agenda let me switch to the standing reports document.
Yep.
Load that up. All right, well, the first standing report is from myself. This is the PUC staff update. Again, it is all written out in the standing report, so I'm going to go over it briefly, knowing that all of you can read it if you want more details. Nothing new to report on the 911 grant program. All the payments seem to be going out smoothly. We do have 3 PSAPs left to be migrated. That's the one for Western Rio Blanco and Rangeley, Colorado, as well as 2 new PSAPs that are being set up by Colorado State Patrol to back up their existing PSAPs. One is CSP Denver and CSP Pueblo. Both of those need to be installed. We do have the quotes from those, so they'll be part of that grant program as well. Holly, do you have any information about the grant program you want to pass on to people?
This is Holly. No, but I would just say if you know that you've migrated and you haven't gotten money yet, please take a look at why that has not been submitted to us. Absolute deadline will be December. So just keep that in mind when you are doing this. All of the contracts expire December 31st. And we are requesting that payment request be in before that expiration date. So if you haven't received reimbursement yet, I'll put the link to the grant page in the chat and you can take a look and see what steps you need to take.
Yeah, and I will also be directing Holly to reach out to the 911 authorities that we have not received reimbursement requests from, if we know that they've already migrated, probably a few at a time so they don't all drown her at once with their paperwork. But you can get ahead of that if you know that you have migrated but have not received reimbursement yet. Please do follow through with the paperwork that you need to do to get that reimbursement. It's pretty easy. The ones that have gone through it can probably tell you that we've made it pretty seamless. So it doesn't take a lot of time, but if you wait till the very last minute, it's going to be harder on everybody. PUC proceedings, the 911 funding and auditing. I almost said auditing. I don't know what that is. 911 funding and auditing rulemaking is still ongoing. Exceptions were filed to that. So the next step is the commission has to rule on the exceptions. I'm expecting that to come out probably near the end of this month. And because of that delay, oh, my screen went all pink because somebody highlighted everything. Because of that delay in the rules becoming effective, we will be issuing temporary rules again just to get us through this next 911 surcharge rate setting. The reason we have to do that is because temporary rules are only valid for 210 days, and it's been more than 210 days since the last set of temporary rules was issued. And the permanent rules won't be in place in time for us to open the proceeding to set the 911 surcharge rate and the emergency telephone charge threshold, et cetera. The list of things that has to be done in that proceeding is listed below there. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer that. But that you can expect to see temporary rules coming out for us to do that also by the end of this month, because I want to open that before August 1st so that we have a full 2 months worth to get it done. The deadline, of course, is October 1st. That's in statute. We have to set the emergency telephone charge threshold, the state 911 surcharge, the prepaid 911 surcharge, et cetera, by October 1st. After the current rulemaking is concluded and concurrently with the proceeding that I just talked about, so we won't wait until after October 1st necessarily to do this, but I will be scheduling a workshop to invite interested parties to discuss a 911 reliability rulemaking. After that workshop, I will be asking the commission to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking with draft rules based on the outcome of that workshop. So I'll be watching for that. I'd hoped to get that done already, but Commission Council is really not crazy about the idea of us overlapping a 911 reliability rulemaking with the 911 funding rulemaking. So we will wait until the 911 funding rulemaking is done before we start on the 911 reliability rulemaking. And then after that, we will have to have another rulemaking to implement rules regarding the collection, remittance, and auditing of 988 surcharges. The governor signed Senate Bill 154, which created a 988 surcharge that will be managed by the commission, that will actually be managed by my office and our new surcharge administrator. And that is as good a time as any to introduce that person. Let's see if we have her on the line. Jolene, are you on the line?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Jolene Sina is our new telecom surcharge administrator. We hired her primarily for the 911 surcharge audits, which are part of the bill that passed last year, House Bill 1293. But she will also be helping us with the 988 surcharge and the TRS surcharge in terms of auditing those surcharges. Jolene comes to us from Department of Revenue, and we are just absolutely, I can't tell you how pleased I am to have her on board because of her experience working with DOR and with the prepaid 911 surcharge over there. DOR. Jolene, do you want to tell the group anything about yourself?
I'm a little shy, so but I don't know. But you kind of said a lot, so thanks.
And yeah, not everybody is an extrovert, willing, happy to talk to 65 strangers on a Zoom call. So we understand that. But Jolene will be involved with the prepaid and collections committee, and she'll be attending these meetings going forward. So I'm hoping everybody gets to know her over time. And like I said, I'm just really happy to have her on board.
Thank you.
FCC proceedings. The FCC has issued final rules on it in its 911 fee diversion proceeding. They clarified some of the items from our comments. For example, the commission filed comments with the FCC saying that they needed to include emergency notification systems as an acceptable expense from 911 fees. They did that. But they didn't respond. They didn't really make a lot of changes based on other comments we made. So for instance, one of the things we asked for was some clarification on what types of radio expenses are considered acceptable and which are not. They still left a lot of gray area in their final rules. However, in their discussion, in the discussion portion of the final report and order, the FCC has directed the 911 strike force to provide some additional input on how that could potentially be clarified. Because right now, I couldn't tell you whether Colorado is considered a 911 fee diverter or not, based on the final rules that they adopted. But I'm hoping that we get some more clarity on that at a later date, based on what the 911 strike force recommends to the commission. Also, in April, the FCC issued a notice of proposed rulemaking on the topic of 911 outage reporting. It took a long time for that to get published in the Federal Register, but now that it has been published in the Federal Register, the comment cycle has been established. Comments are due by July 30th. Reply comments are due by August 30th. I will tell you that I have not even read this yet, but I will be reading it to see if it's something that the commission wants to weigh in on in terms of comments. But I would encourage all of you to take a look too. The link is in the standing reports document. I would encourage you to take a look at the notice of proposed rulemaking and see if it's something that your agency would like to comment on. I do believe it gets into trying to make 911 outage reporting to or notifications to the PSAPs more useful. So that's something that everyone should definitely take a look at. And just so everyone knows, I have been appointed to the FCC's 911 fee diversion strike force. I'm also serving as vice chair of one of the working groups, and it happens to be the working group that's going to be making recommendations on the radio issue that was requested by the FCC in their final in their report and order on the 911 fee diversion rules. So we'll be following up on that. Final report from that working group and the strike force itself to the FCC and to Congress is due in September. So we'll be working on that pretty much weekly until that gets done.
Hey, Daryl.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Holly. Before you jump over into the next section, I wanted to make sure something was asked in the chat about the PUC proceedings. Tracy asked who filed exceptions and what were the issues. And I apologize if you addressed that. I wasn't sure if it was addressed yet.
Sure. So Bretza filed the exceptions, and what they filed about was kind of complicated. One of the exceptions had to do with the appropriateness of the section of the rules requiring annual reporting from 911 governing bodies. So one of the things that House Bill 1293 does is it allows the commission to require reporting from 911 governing bodies on an annual basis for specific reasons. And Bretza filed exceptions regarding those specific reasons. I don't want to get into it any further than that because that would put me in a position of trying to characterize Bretza's argument for them, and I don't want to do that. The other exception, I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm because it's been a week or two since I've looked at it. I'm not recalling what the other exception was, but they were on specific issues like that one. I don't know if Joe Benkert, I don't if you're on the line, if you want to talk about that, I'll give you some space to do so. Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
I'm sorry, I was talking with my mic off.
Okay, go ahead.
The second one had to do with the fact that if somebody applies for an additional concurrent session and to have that paid for by the PUC, that the decision granting that application had to be made, I think it was by September 1st. It was more than a month in advance of when the decision of what the surcharge rate for the year would be. And I didn't think that it required that much time for the commission to make, to make the adjustments in the fee for the coming year, the statewide fee and the surcharge cap, as they'd be affected, because it's not that complicated an equation. Just to make sure, give authorities the best opportunity that if they need to add concurrent sessions, that they will be paid for out of the statewide surcharge.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions on the 911 funding and auditing rulemaking? And thank you, Holly, for watching the chat since I'm reading through this report here. Federal legislation, I'm really not going to go through this because there is a lot. So you can see there's about 2 pages of federal legislation related to 911 that's out there right now. Honestly, I wouldn't expect most of this to have a lot of movement because Congress is fairly deadlocked right now with the 50-50 count in the Senate. But these are on here for you to review and see if it's something that you're interested in. One thing that I think, well, I do think that it's important to point out that the Lift America Act, and I'm trying to find which one that is. The Lift America Act is, well, that's the first one on here, House Resolution 1848. It's going through negotiations right now. There is a lot of back and forth between the parties on what they would like to see in this. We don't know what the final version is going to be, or if they're going to be able to agree on a final version, or whether the Next Generation 911 grant program for $15 billion will be part of that final version. However, the statement, the position statement that was voted on at our special meeting a couple of weeks ago, I think will be helpful whether or not it's in this bill or not, because if it's not in this bill, it may end up in a separate standalone bill. So I think it's important that the task force and the Colorado NENA APCO chapter made their position known on the details of that that bill as it's currently written. So I want to thank everybody for participating in that special meeting and voting on that position statement. In terms of state legislation, the state legislature is now out of session. There were several bills that were being tracked. The two biggest ones for me, Senate Bill 154, even though it doesn't directly deal with 911, it does create a new 988 surcharge, and there will be some interaction between the new 988 system as it's developed and 911 over time. And I think everybody needs to be aware of that. We may be working with stakeholder groups from both 911 and 988 to make sure that there's some consistency, if possible, between how 911 centers choose to transfer callers if they do transfer callers to 988. So be watching for some opportunities to help shape that policy as time goes on, because I think the 988 Planning Committee is probably going to be doing some outreach to the 911 community regarding how to make sure that that goes smoothly. And then the other bill of particular interest was Senate Bill 156, which creates a 911 nurse intake trial program. It creates a grant program. It's completely voluntary, but creates a grant program for 3 911 centers in the state to help them pay for a trial program that would divert some non-emergency medical calls to a nurse triage hotline. The commission's role in that bill is simply to act as a consultant to the Colorado Department of Public Health. So we will probably be reaching out to 911 centers as they reach out to us for help on setting up that program. We will be reaching out to the 911 community to get input on how to do that effectively. But that bill did pass, so be watching for that as well. Implementation of the state's 911 surcharge. The new flat rate prepaid 911 surcharge has continued to generate nearly $1 million a month, which was a lot more than we expected. DOR takes a very small portion of that revenue to cover its administrative costs, and the rest is being distributed to the governing bodies. The state 911 surcharge, on the other hand, has not been as steady as I had hoped. We're seeing some big fluctuations from one month to the next, and I think it's basically due to when the companies are remitting those surcharges. So in May, for May, it was only $262,000, even though the previous 2 months was much higher, with $896,000 in March and $719,000 in April. And really, I think looking at the balance in early June, I believe that it's really just due to the fact that the companies remitted those payments right after the cutoff. So and for the next month, it should be much higher. But the good news is we have now hired our surcharge administrator, Jolene Sena, who I just introduced a little bit earlier. And she will be following up with the companies to try to get them into better compliance. I may also talk to our custodial agent, which is Solix. There's a company called Solix that actually collects these surcharges on our behalf and distributes them to the 911 governing bodies to see if maybe we can make some adjustments to the cutoff date that they use for distributing those funds, and maybe that will help reduce the variation that we're seeing from month to month. But in the meantime, just note that if we see a month that's low, like we did in our last payment, the month following that should be higher because of the way that the payments hit the deadline. And then finally, deadlines coming up for 911 governing bodies. Just keep in mind that if you want to change your surcharge rate, I should be careful with my terminology. If you want to change your local emergency telephone charge rate, the deadline for that being effective is February 1st, but you do have to give 60 days notice to the carriers, which means that your deadline is really December 1st. And if you have to file an application with the commission because it's over the threshold of $1.72, that means that you need to file by you need to file an application with the commission to do that by November 1st. We will also be adjusting that threshold at our annual 911 rate setting proceeding by October 1st. So that number will be changing slightly, but if you think that you're going to need to go above what that number is going to be adjusted for inflation, make sure to make plans to file your application by October 1st to increase your emergency telephone charge. And that is all I have for the PUC staff update. If anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I feel like I just talked and talked and talked. These PUC staff reports are getting longer and longer, so I apologize for that. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to fill in blanks. Okay, Carl.
Thank you. This is Carl. Welcome, Jolene, and congratulations, Daryl, on his appointment to the strike force. The next item is the BESP report from Lumen.
I saw Kunkelman had to jump off. I don't know if he was.
Okay, Wes, do you know if there's anything?
No, he did not send me an email on that, so no updates from Lumen.
Okay. Next item is BSP report from Entrado, Mary Jane.
Hey, Carl, it's Mary Jane. I don't have a report, but I apologize. I had to join a little late. So if you'd mark me down as in attendance, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Just glad you could join.
Thank you.
Next item, we're back to Carol, Agenda Committee.
So in August, we will have part 2 of our 2-part GIS expert panel moderated by Matt Gage, who is the chair of the GIS committee. And I want to say the first one I thought went extremely well. It is up on our YouTube channel, the task force's YouTube channel. So if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I would highly recommend it. And if you have a chance to attend our one in August, I would highly recommend that as well, because the first one did go so well. I have high hopes for the second one as well. We do not have a presentation set up for September yet, but I do have several possible topics that we could explore. As always, if someone has a suggestion regarding a topic or speaker, please let me know.
Oh, Daryl, this is Cheryl.
Yes, Cheryl.
What about? I'm not getting that. Who you suggested? Oh, Cheryl suggested somebody. Penn?
Yes,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yes, I got that suggestion from Cheryl, so that's on my list of possible topics to look at. So we'll be looking at all of the suggestions I've received. But if anybody has any additional suggestions, please send them to me. All right, Carl, back to you.
Thank you. For the bylaws committee, it doesn't look like there's any report or requested changes. So we'll go to the legislative committee, Jackie Louise.
Morning, everyone. I have unstable internet is what I'm being told. So hopefully you can hear me all. The committee's working on several things, as Daryl pointed out with the Lift America Act. I have sent the position statement to all our Congress and all our Senate representatives. I'm hoping to get more volunteers because they really want to hear from their constituents as opposed to someone just generic. I have a little bit of input back from them, but not much. And so I would really like us to follow up on maybe setting up meetings with them. Bill from FreeCom, Deanie from Douglas, and Carl have agreed to work on their representatives. And like I said, just a 15-minute maybe Zoom call or whatever with the representative or their aides, I think would be really important just to kind of make sure they see our position on this really important bill, because it will bring us some money, hopefully. We're also working on a petition for reconsideration to the FCC comments, and it's basically just about clarification. And I should have a draft of that hopefully by the next legislative committee, which is Monday. And we've been still working on the misuse of 911 draft legislation. I'm going to be reaching out to the legislator I've been working with, but I didn't know if anybody would be able to take the lead on reaching out to other representatives to see if this is a bill they'd be interested in running next year. And the other thing we've been looking at is some edits to House Bill 1293, and there haven't been any decisions made on where we're headed with those. Next meeting again is July 12th at 1.
Yep.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jackie? Seeing none, our next item is equal access. Cheryl, take it away.
Hi. Want me to read? Oh, Cheryl wants me to read this. And it is, we had Penn do a presentation June 24th at our Equal Access meeting. Penn is the Development and Outreach Director for the Audio Information Network out of Boulder. This is a radio station that reads for the blind. And what? The one we have? When that shooting occurred in Boulder. No one got an alert through the center. So we are working to make sure that they are included for any future alerts. Okay. Next, Cheryl says, announcing the revised Cal OES access and functional needs AFN library. That is, Cheryl is saying that is the California. It's the Office of Emergency Services. So and so in response to the immense number of inquiries from across the state and the nation by community leaders, state agencies, advocacy organizations, emergency managers, private sector partners, and others seeking access and functional needs related information resources, the Cal OES Office of Access and Functional Needs, OAFN, has revised its AFN library. And this is available nationwide. Okay. This is the link to communication on the California Office of Emergency Services, and it's there listed in the notes. And then there's another one for a central online repository clearinghouse of whole community based best practices. She's also saying Colorado Office of Emergency Managers Conference for 2022 has a call for presentations. If you are interested or know someone who is, please contact Cheryl directly. And the next meeting of the committee is going to be on July 29th. And that's all I have at this time. And I also need to drop off the call. Any questions before I go?
Yeah, I have one quick one. This is Patty with Brett's SI in Boulder. You said that there were no alerts were received. I got part of that.
What? In her office, there may have been some that got contacted, but as far as her office is concerned, she received none.
Meaning an office that's in Boulder, or Oh, an office, her office as it pertains to just the calls in general.
Yes, her office is in Boulder and this is a big concern because make sure that they serve people who are blind. And can you email me what, Cheryl? Any concerns or questions? Oh, for Patty. Yeah, Patty, if you want to, if she didn't quite answer your question, go ahead with a follow-up on her email, and she'll try and elaborate.
So I think the point, I was at that meeting, I think the point was that Ms. Penn Street, runs the outreach director for the Audio Information Network, she said that their office in Boulder didn't get a notification. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And they should have. But we're working on that.
Okay, that was part of my follow-up. If she's already working on it, I can just follow up on my end, but I wanted to make sure that that was what was happening.
Yes. I have a meeting. Yeah, with Penn next week. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Cheryl? This is Carl.
Thank you. I'm out of here. Okay. Okay.
Have a
Bye,
good day.
everyone. Yeah.
This is Carl. Our next item is Advocacy Committee, Daryl.
So I'll just give a brief overview. We don't have any active special investigations going on right now, but thank you for muting that person, whoever that was. We do have, I will show our basic outage service outages. Since our last meeting, so far we have 5 this year. That puts us, if you look at the chart at the top right there, that puts us a little bit ahead of where we were last year, but below where we were in 2018 and 2019. 3 of our basic emergency service outages so far this year happened in January. We didn't have any in February. Then we've had 1 each in March, April, and May. We are above where we have been in previous years in terms of the average duration of the outage, but way below in terms of average customer count. So these are outages happening in more rural areas, affecting fewer customers, but they're taking longer to get fixed, which I think would be expected if they're happening in more rural areas because it takes longer to get technicians out there. Then in terms of customer minutes, the average is much lower this year than it has been well, it's a little bit lower than it was last year, and it's a lot lower than it was in 2019. The same is true of the total user minutes for all outages so far this year. Basic emergency service outages have been mostly full outages with about 40%. It's actually 2 out of the 6, or 2 out of the 5 rather, were ALI only. And that kind of tracks with what I expected to see. As more PSAPs get onto the ESINet, we should see fewer ALI only outages because ALI will be delivered over the same pathway that voice is delivered. instead of a separate circuit. So I'm expecting that we will continue to see alley outages become the minority, whereas in previous years, they were the majority of outages that we had. Outages by cause, most of the outages so far this year, 3 out of the 5 have been due to accidental cable cuts. 1 was planned due to maintenance they were doing at an outage at a PSAP, and then 1 is unknown. It's not known what caused it because the system reset before technicians arrived to fix it, according to the information that we get. So overall, we're not looking too bad compared to previous years. We are a little high this year compared to last year, but it is only July, so and we're only talking about 5 outages total, so it's a small sample size. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of the year. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those. All right. Thank you, Carl. You there, Carl?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, our next item, Daryl, thank you for the report. Our next item is our prepaid and collections committee, Jackie.
Hi again. We have a busy day on Monday, the 12th. We also have a prepaid and collections committee meeting at 11 a.m. Daryl's working on the wireless call volume reports that we talked about at the last meeting. And anyway, so he's going to present that, and then we will talk about at that meeting our next projects and how we want to move forward with policy procedure document. And again, Monday the 12th, 11 a.m. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, and Jackie, just to add on to that a little bit. So what I'm doing is I've never been happy with the alley retrieval reports as the source for our wireless call volume numbers. And for those of you who aren't familiar, what we use those for is determining the percentage that everyone receives of the prepaid wireless 911 surcharge. The statute says we have to do it by wireless call volume, but it doesn't say how we determine the wireless call volume. And up until now, the only thing we've really had to use are the alley retrieval reports. But because wireless calls get rebid, they go through a process of removing those rebids. And it's just, I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy that report is telling us how many 911 calls, wireless 911 calls, every call center is actually receiving. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at the Clearview reports and show the alley retrieval reports and show what the differences are. And it's actually what I've done so far with the Clearview reporting, even though a lot of PSAPs only had a partial year, the percentages are actually coming out fairly close to what we've had in the past. So we may be using the Clearview reports going forward, but that's something that will be discussed at this prepaid and collections committee, and we'll see what the committee thinks in terms of whether we should continue using the alley retrieval reports or use the Clearview reports to determine the prepaid wireless 911 surcharge distribution percentages for 2022.
This is Carl, Jackie, and Daryl. Thank you. Are there any questions for either one? Okay, our next item is reports committee, Daryl.
So this task force sends a report to the commission every other meeting. So that works out to once every 4 months or 3 times a year. A draft of that report was sent out to the reports committee. There was a copy in the folder for this meeting today. So I'm hoping everyone's had a chance to look at it, but whether you have or not, I'm going to ask Carl to call for a vote to approve it. But before he does that, if anybody has any suggestions or comments that they have not had time to put into the document itself, I would be open to hearing that. One thing I did want to point out is I did get a comment from Kimberly Culp about the use of the term PSAP and asking if we should transition to using the term ECC in our reports to the commission. And what I did instead is I made a note that in a footnote here that the term Emergency Communication Center or ECC is becoming the industry standard term for a 911 call center or dispatch center, but because PSAP is the defined term in statute and in commission rules, we continue to use it here. So instead of changing it, I kind of taught the controversy instead. So I wanted to see if people thought that that was a good compromise. I'm hesitant to change it to ECC because of the fact that PSAP is the defined term in our rules and in statute. But if people have a strong feeling about that, I'd be willing to entertain changing that in the document.
I like your approach, Daryl.
Okay, great.
Yep, no argument here.
And not necessarily on that issue, but anything else in the report. If anybody has any questions or comments, please let me know. Not hearing anything, Carl, I would ask you to call for a vote to approve this report.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve sending the report to the commission?
This is Ray. I'll make the motion.
Okay, Ray moved a second.
This is
And
Kimberly.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
This is Kimberly Cup. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly and Ray. Any opposed? Seeing none, it moves forward. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
And then our next report is EZNet User Group, Kimberly Culp.
All right, so just a few items, and I do have the written report in the document, but just for everybody, Lumen is pretty much wrapping up our project for all the primary migrations. They are still working on the military basis and state patrol, and I haven't received an update from them. So I'm hoping that we have progress, and I would like to ask Wes to provide that update if you have a quick one, Wes, on those installations.
Yes, Kimberly, I believe Rangeley is the only one outside of the CSP and the military bases. So I think, what is that? I think that's 6 left.
Okay, so we haven't completed the military basis or CSP yet.
No, we got a little bit of a hang up on Buckley. We thought that would be done this past week, but still working on it. I do expect Rangeley and Buckley to close up pretty quickly, as well as the CSPs.
Okay, so that's great. We're making a lot of progress, and I would consider this project almost wrapped up from a migration perspective. I did include in the report the open items from Lumen, so I haven't heard from the EXFO Pro replacement project. I'm assuming Cindy will be our project point of contact on that replacement project, so we will get an update hopefully from Lumen shortly on that. We also submitted a text across the EZNet letter. So we drafted a letter from the EZNet user group, submitted that to Lumen, and asked them to proceed with conversations about the cost for that request and really the technical specs on how that would work. So we haven't heard back, and I'm hoping we'll have an update for our EZNet user group next week. We also submitted a letter to Lumen about ECATS, and Daryl mentioned the importance of good reporting on the EZNet. And in some of our opinions, Clearview isn't quite the tools that can get us to that good reporting status. We did see a demonstration of ECATS, and so we've submitted a letter to Lumen to consider ECATS as a statewide reporting solution to replace Clearview. We haven't heard back on that inquiry, so hoping to have an update next week. Two additional.
Kim?
Oh, yes, Wes, go ahead.
I can update you on the ECATS.
Okay.
So on ECATS, I think it's good news. I've been working with ECATS directly myself to see what we could do. And the plan right now, and I think we're going to have some things that they'll be sending to us as far as what that lift might be as far as a cost basis. But what we wanted to do on ECATS was match the same way that Clearview is delivered. We'll have a basic report, one report for each PSAP. It will work differently, as some of you are used to using ECATS now and how it gets configured. This will be different. We will configure it behind the scenes that it will be the same, be it Denver or Baca County. We'll have one report. It'll be delivered the same way for each and every PSAP. It doesn't matter which size your PSAP is, et cetera. And so that's very positive, I think, to make the transition. And that's really the way it's kind of written into the tariff. Clearview was supposed to be a standard offering for the MIS reporting, and we were planning on having ECATS basically emulate that easiness. Now, I do have a question too. What we have so much more that we can do as far as metrics with ECATS. We'll get back with you and the folks there to see all the other things that might be possible with ECATS besides just MIS reporting. What else can we really import into that, and what you want to see?
Great. Thank you for the update, Wes. And just for everybody from a baseline perspective, this is the request is to replace and not to be an end-to-end solution. Really what is regulated in part of the tariff, and having ECATS replace that Clearview. So not replacing your end-to-end solution that you may already have in your PSAP, but it sounds like, Wes, there could be an opportunity for additional conversations if an agency wanted to contract and add on functionality.
Correct. I mean, it can do MIS, it can look at text, the dashboard, wireless routing analysis, and other niceties like a staffing module, which shouldn't be part of the tariff in my humble opinion, but there's a lot of feature functions that's available in ECATS. So we want to make sure that we hit the mark at a base level that's still much better than Clearview, but what else can be added to that? We might want to explore that here in an open dialogue next time.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. And then the other two items we have pending for Lumen is a conversation about transferring 911 to 911 across state lines. So border interoperability, really important. And then also we had a high level conversation about what is Intrado and Lumen doing with RFAI to a 911. So we definitely need to regroup and spend some more time with that and give it the attention it needs. So that's really where the EZNet user group is at. We do have a full state meeting next week, so looking forward to having everybody get on that call. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Hey, Kimberly, this is Vicki. Just a question. Did I miss, was there any discussion of the timeline on the ECATS transition, or maybe that's for Wes?
Yeah, this is the first I've heard back on that memo. So Wes, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I think ECATS will be fairly easy to implement. Vicki, to get it in fairly short fashion. We don't have an exact timeline, but I'd like to see it coming in the fall. That's if we can all reach agreement on what that basic template should look like for the whole statewide before any options are considered on a per PSAP basis. But they're getting back to us on what it should be here in the next week or so from ECATS. Then I have to run it through legal and product and all the rest of that. So I'm hoping for a reasonably quick turnaround.
Great, thank you.
Wes, this is Daryl. Will that require any hardware installation at the PSAPs, or can it be deployed virtually?
It should be able to be deployed virtually. There is lifting involved in that, obviously, for particularly in Colorado, of course, because of all the different types of CPE. But part of that, which ECATS has to work through, is for them to remotely work with each PSAP, and they're vendors, which cover the whole buffet of CPE out there.
Thank you. And just a comment on Clearview. For those of you who don't know, Clearview requires use of Internet Explorer in legacy mode or compatibility mode. I can't remember what they call it. But for those of you who've seen the news, Microsoft is retiring Internet Explorer next year. So there is a little bit of a time frame on getting something else in place to replace it.
Great, thank you. And then I know that we've already passed Lumen's update, but I think an important update hasn't been shared. And Wes, did you want to share about the change of legal for Lumen?
Well, yes, Tim Goodwin has left to assume a senior position over there at Charter Communications. He left, 2 weeks ago? And his replacement is, I have not actually spoken with the gentleman, but
I think it's Adam
and
Sher.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
don't have.
this is Tim.
That's it.
It's
Thank
going to
you
be
very
Adam
much.
Scher.
Adam Scher.
You know, and he's worked with us for a long time. He's up in Seattle. And I think that's part of some of our delay in getting back to your letters, Kimberly, and I was going to address this in my update, was we haven't forgot about those things and we are working on them. So just trying to get some of our new legal team up to speed on how the tariff works and how these kinds of services could or should be rolled into that.
Great, thank you. That's all I have. So Carl, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. This is Carl. And Tim, I think something happened when we asked for an update. If you have one, go ahead.
Well, no, and I had put a note in the chat. I had to drop off for another call for a bit, but I don't have any other updates other than I was just going to address that we had these outstanding items.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is GIS Committee. Matt.
Hi, everyone. Don't really have anything to add to what's in the written report. The GIS panel number 1 seemed to go pretty well. I think we elicited a lot of useful information for the attendees and had some great discussion. So I think August 12th is the date that Daryl and I currently have set for the second panel, which will build on the first set of 5 topics.
And I just want to add and say thanks to Matt for running a terrific panel. You were a great moderator and came up with some great questions, and it was a really good discussion.
Right on, thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. Our next item is broadband update, Ed Mills.
Sorry, I can't find the unmute button. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot to report other than a lot of things are happening in our office. Over the years, we've seen that there are many state agencies that touch on broadband, and there's concurrent efforts going on in all those offices. And so yesterday there was a signing of HB 21-1109, and that'll bring from DORA, Brian Martin and Stephen Gould to the CBO team. This is all in an effort to try and consolidate all broadband activity in one office. And as you know, or if you don't know, let me let you know, I am the public safety liaison. So for all things broadband, and that gives me a lot of latitude to help in anything that you may need as you're trying to vet technologies. And if you don't have the staff, they will pay me to do that, to understand that, and then to give our best foot forward. So anyway, that's that. You'll be seeing a lot of changes. We are making a lot of headway. For example, my other position is tribal liaison. And so I advocate for the tribes. We were able to get them $20 million. And although that doesn't relate specifically to this group, we are constantly advocating on behalf of our responders across the state, especially 911, PSAP, dispatch centers. And a big shout out to Daryl Branson. Daryl always will take either my call or Teresa's call. And we usually have some fire drills that we ask him to go through. And even yesterday we had him on trying to get some bulleted items for middle mile that could benefit in unserved areas, 911, so we can create some redundancy. So every day we're looking out for your interest. If there are any interests you think that we might miss, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And Carl, I'll leave it right there.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ed? Ed, thank you. And I think you, Teresa, and Daryl will make a great team for moving us forward.
Thank you, Carl. And we always appreciate you allowing us a platform here. Thank you.
Cool. Our next item is PSCS report. Deanie.
Good morning to all. I actually don't have a whole lot to discuss and report. We have our PSCS meeting at 1 o'clock today.
Thank you. Next item is our SWIC report. Glenn.
Thank you, Carl. Just a quick update here. On behalf of the PSCS and CCNC, we've been, as part of the DTRS steering committee, which was tasked with providing a recommendation to executive state leadership on where the digital trunk radio system should be located, moving from OIT. Our recommendations are complete. They will be presented to the PSCS today and CCNC tomorrow. In a nutshell, the recommendation is to move it from OIT to the Department of Public Safety. And the recommendation is to have that as a division level, answering directly to Executive Director Stan Hilke. So much of my time has been on that over the past month. Also coming up, as I mentioned at the last meeting, I believe, a communications exercise or drill that we're conducting in conjunction with the quarterly State Emergency Operations Center exercise on October 6th, looking for agencies that want to participate in a drill just to evaluate the PACE planning, which would be different ways to contact the SEOC if things get ugly. So your primary, alternate, contingent, and emergent ways to get a hold of the state EOC. So we've got lots of options. Any agencies want to participate, we'd be happy to have you on board. We're working primarily through county emergency managers, but if there's anybody else that wants to participate, this has been scheduled for a while, but a couple weeks ago, they announced another communications exercise on the same date. So we've got a little overlap with it. We're going to try to coordinate a bit around that so we don't take resources from each area. And then just a reminder, you probably already know, but there will be a national emergency alert and a WEA, wireless emergency alert system test, coming up on August 11th. That will be at 11:20 in the morning. So that could well impact PSAPs throughout the state. So just know that's going to be, the WEA is for those who have opted in. It's not a global to catch everybody as it would during an actual alert. So that wraps up my report today, pending any questions.
This is Carl. Thank you. Are there any questions for Glenn? Okay, thanks, Glenn. Our next item is Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Is Monica or Vicky on the phone?
Vicky's here. I'm attending their next commission meeting next week on Monica's behalf, but I don't have any update otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And then Colorado Resource Center update.
I believe Monica.
Because I know they worked on the comm center job description template, and Monica sent that out last week or this week.
Yeah, Monica's on vacation this week.
And then she's been working with CDPHE and behavioral health. And I think Mandy's been involved with that. Mandy, do you have anything more on that?
Sorry, I had to get unmuted.
Okay.
So I had been working with them in behavioral health and then unfortunately had to drop off and haven't been as involved in the last few months and haven't attended. So I don't have an update. Just been more involved in the 988 planning committee and just like other folks on this call. So I apologize. I don't have an update.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. And it looks like we're done, at least for the updates. Daryl, do you want to take a break for lunch for 15 minutes? It looks like.
I think that's up to you, or we can power through because I don't know that we have much left to discuss. There's nothing under old or new business. So the only thing really
Okay.
left would be open discussion. We could probably power through unless you want to take a break.
No, I'm good. Any old business? Seeing none, any new business? How about open discussion?
The only thing I would ask is if we want to continue meeting virtually. I know a lot of things are starting to get back to normal, but at the same time, I'm a little concerned about the spike in the Delta variant, and now there's a Lambda variant that's out there. And frankly, we've had better attendance through virtual meetings than we were with our in-person meetings. So for future meetings, do we want to continue doing virtual, or should we start planning some in-person task force meetings?
This is Vicki. I know some organizations that I'm a part of are doing like face-to-face, like a couple times a year, and then the rest virtually. I think there is some value to being in person, but I mean, it is a lot. So maybe it could be one of those things where it's once or twice a year face-to-face, and then the rest is virtual.
So this is Mandy, and I would concur with Vicky. I understand the concerns of some of the variants, but I do believe that while we've had better attendance virtually, some of that's due to just being able to travel for meetings. There's some loss in the value of a meeting when everything is virtual. So I'm a proponent of scheduling a couple in person with the option for folks to still join in a hybrid situation. And for those who wish to travel or can conduct other business that needs to be conducted face-to-face, things like that, I'd be a proponent of scheduling some in person with a Zoom hybrid mix.
When we have the in-person meetings, we've had available online, but I've not logged in that way. How is the quality logging into an in-person meeting over the web versus this way of doing it?
Well, this is Daryl, and having been the one who has facilitated that hybrid, because we've always had a remote option, even for our in-person meetings. And the comments I've received back from people have been that it varies depending on where we're meeting. Some places have better audio than others in terms of the people on the phone being able to hear. And what my recollection is that the people who were attending remotely didn't really participate that much. It was the people in the room who kind of dominated the conversation. So that's one thing I do like about the virtual meetings, is that it puts everybody on the same playing field for participating in the meeting.
This is Matt. Even for the in-person meetings, I have found the hybrid approach invaluable. It's rare that I can justify that much time away from the desk. And quite honestly, allows me to multitask. Yes, sometimes it reduces the ability to participate or understand. You can't hear everyone all the time, but having the online hybrid approach has been invaluable for me.
This is Jennifer, and I would second that. However, if we want to host or if we want to hold in-person options, Grand Junction is happy to host on the Western Slope at least once a year if we want to take it on the road.
So if we want to do mostly virtual with some in-person, maybe we do at least try to do one meeting a year on the Front Range and one meeting on the Western Slope, and have all of the other meetings be virtual. And I would say for the ones in person, we still have the virtual option for people who can't afford the time to travel. Would that be a good compromise for everybody?
I think that would be good. And I think it'd be good if it was during the summertime or more the snowy times.
I agree. I think that's a great solution.
I think let's do that and reevaluate at the end of the year.
Okay, sounds good. I'll work with Carl and offline between the meetings to see what we can set up.
Great.
Thank you. Any other items for open discussion? Seeing done, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Vicky, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
This is Mandy. I'll second.
Thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none, we're adjourned at 11:58. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.